Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we have some pretty interesting things to talk about. You see Sega Sammy, so this is the holdings company, released their financial report, and apparently there was a PDF attached to it with just how many numbers sold for different games. You can see that on screen right now. It's not only just Total War Warhammer, but also Three Kingdoms, the Persona series, and a few others. Pretty big hitters, if we can talk about it pretty lightly like that. Like, oh my god. I do want to apologize right now to the Persona fan base. I did not know how absolutely popular Persona 5 has been. Like, oh my god, that's a lot of numbers. Now, what I want to do in this video is talk about Total War Warhammer 3 and obviously Three Kingdoms. And we're going to talk about that. Again, this isn't really much of like what series is doing better and so on. I do feel like conversations like this are quite educational, so without further ado, let's jump right in. So before anything, we do have a lot of other franchises that Sega works on, you know, Persona 5 Royale, Sonic Frontiers, that one's a relatively newer game. It did sell quite a lot, but then again, you know, you've got to look at Sonic as an IP, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Sonic Superstars, all the Sonic stuff sells incredibly well. Basically, Sega as a whole gets pretty large numbers in terms of sales. Like, if you look at Yakuza Like a Dragon, right? It didn't do amazingly in 2020, but it's just been very consistently quite high there. Like, yeah, a game releases and then sales start to slow down, but in most cases, it's just been quite high. Persona 5 being probably the best example of that, where numbers have been absolutely wild with 7.25 million copies. It's insane. I'm assuming this also has DLC stuff. If not, well, then there's just a lot of people like Persona. That's not really relevant to the stuff of Total War, but I guess it's kind of important to see how Total War does do great sales, but isn't like the biggest fish that Sega do have. Okay, we're going to talk about Three Kingdoms before anything else because it is a Total War game. I mean, incredible sales from its launch in 2020, which, I mean, yeah, you know, it makes a lot of sense. They marketed it heavily towards China, and it was going to sell. There is a drastic cutoff, though. As you can see, for the following years, it was just going down, down, and down. And this happens because, well, unfortunately, Creative Assembly didn't really hit the mark right with DLCs. That's something that we've all known for quite some time now. I would argue that Three Kingdoms died before it had its real proper chance of succeeding. And it wasn't just the DLC stuff. I mean, it was a lot to do with the DLCs, but there was just no proper formatting when it came to Three Kingdoms. The DLC being 8 princes, so literally the end of the story of the Three Kingdoms, and then just kind of sporadically going around all the different locations. It should have been consistent. The DLC plan should have focused around straight from the Yellow Turbans, going into the whole Dongzhou stuff, and just following the story. I feel like that would have been better. Though I would argue that DLC started getting a lot better once they started doing stuff like Lubu. Fates Divided was a fantastic DLC. Despite the fact it was content for characters that were already in-game, it really actually made Cao Cao and Yuan Shao actually play like they should have. Like everyone kind of already knew about their history and so on. Nanman DLC was pretty damn good, albeit still very buggy. Still buggy to this day, by the way. The game still sold for a decent amount of copies. It's pretty much died now in 2025, and people are still waiting for the fabled announcement of Three Kingdoms 2. I still very much believe that that's not happening, and yeah, I'm going to just stay with that. To be honest, I'm surprised that people still have a lot of faith in that. I think that project got axed a while back, even before the layoffs for Creative Assembly, which is a massive shame because we didn't really get a Three Kingdoms period for Three Kingdoms. But, yeah, I mean, overall, 2.1 million copies in the first year is pretty impressive. We have to keep in mind that, yeah, by this time, Creative Assembly were failing on multiple parts, which is also stuff with Warhammer 3 and so on. I do think that COVID and just the lockdowns in general just really screwed over Creative Assembly. And before anyone says, well, they've been screwed for a while, I mean, not long prior to this, we had Warhammer 2, and while Warhammer 2 did have its issues, it was a fantastic game overall. Alright, now we're going to jump into Total War Warhammer 3, and this is where things get really curious. Obviously, the launch wasn't amazing for the very beginning. The launch was pretty much botched, right? A lot of people had been begging for another delay, but it seems that delays were just not going to happen, mostly because at a certain point it was getting to the end of the financial year, there hadn't been a game for a while, they had to push it out. I'm assuming this was Sega pushing it out, or it depends. It's sometimes a shareholder thing. It just very much depends. I still think that if the game would have launched at its original date, it would have had a bit more, but yes, it was actually delayed until the next year, near the end of the financial year for Creative Assembly. Japan does have a different financial year planning though, so keep that in mind. Then it started getting alright. I mean, it did cut by half, it's kind of brutal, but Warhammer is still essentially a niche product. We have to keep that in mind, especially when it comes to a Total War game, and that game had still been getting a lot of drama until the Immortal Empires came out, and then, yeah, it just kind of stagnated a little bit. It's still doing decent in terms of numbers, DLC is keeping it going, and we are noticing a lot of new players coming in. But it does feel like it's lost a lot of its momentum. I think Shadows of Change kind of killed off the momentum that we did have with Total War Warhammer 3. Because before that, you know, we had Champions of Chaos, we had Forge of the Chaos Dwarves. Everyone was quite hyped up, and that DLC kind of derailed stuff. I mean, it's still a lot of numbers. It's still over 250,000 so far per year, leading to an alleged total of 2.3 million, which is pretty good for, well, it's an alleged number, right? But if it sold 2.3 million and Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2 have kind of done similar, I'm imagining, there's no message regarding that, it could be a lot of money. Definitely shows that obviously the sequel system does work. I'd say that's pretty good for overall. Now, you're probably wondering, why are we talking about this? Well, it depends about the future, right? Those numbers, how much does that translate to DLC? If it translates quite heavily, I mean, something fairly good can happen there. Keep in mind, obviously, that people have been buying it on discounts, on sales, different stuff like instant gaming. But I do wonder what the metrics are for Creative Assembly and, most important, Sega, with regards to how many copies of a DLC needs to sell for it to keep being a financial incentive to create more, I guess. The financial incentive must still be there, because we know we're getting Tides of Torment, and it's very likely that we're going to get another DLC after that, the way that wording has been done in previous blogs by Creative Assembly. So, sure, it would definitely be nice to know how much DLCs sell, because I think that's a big thing here. Do DLCs sell that much? How much does production in DLCs go? I imagine they make more money from DLCs than they would from like Warhammer 3 itself, because the base game had to recuperate a lot of losses in terms of, creation of the armies, creation of the map, and so on, whereas the DLCs are kind of building up from there, so it's its own type of thing. I could be wrong here, though. I'm not a game dev. And yes, before anyone says anything, I'm aware that Space Marine 2 sold more, and I think Darktide did too, but keep in mind that 40k is just infinitely more popular than Fantasy, so yeah, I mean, that kind of makes sense regardless. But with that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Start a bit of discussion. I do apologize. Videos have been all over the place. I've been traveling. I've been sorting out some stuff. Some big changes are coming. Stuff that's got me rather nervous. But yeah, I'm dealing with a lot of movement and so on. Because I'm potentially moving soon. And it's a massive headache. It's a massive headache. Have a great day, everyone. And I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye.